It's finally time to start having a little bit of fun with Project Prickly Pear, because for over a year now I have been working really hard to make this thing drivable and a little reliable, and now it's time to do something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that's install a lift kit. So tomorrow we're going to head over to the shop, install this, and then we're going to take it off-road for the very first time. I haven't even had this thing on a real trail yet. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. Stay tuned.
It's raining.
Whew, that sucker is heavy, and I got 4 of these to throw in here. Welcome to TrailRecon. I'm Brad, and I cannot wait. Finally, we're going to be taking this thing off-road after we get this lift kit installed. So tomorrow morning, I'm heading over to a local shop here that does great work for me all the time, and we're going to install a 4-inch lift on Project Prickly Pear, which is a 74 Jeep Cherokee. If you know anything about the 74 Jeep Cherokee, years 74 and 75 had this really odd measurement in suspension, and so it's very difficult to find lift kits that you could just bolt onto these guys. Well, thankfully, I found one. Now, I ordered this, and I ordered a set of 4-inch lift kit, which are Deaver springs made here in the US, and all the accoutrements that we need to make this sit a little taller. Cannot wait. Now, I know what you're thinking. Brad, why don't you just do this lift kit in the garage yourself? And well, you're right. I could do that. But here's the thing. I've installed many lift kits over the years, and look, I know what it takes on an old rusty truck like this to install one of these lift kits, and I would be in the garage on my back for about 2 days instead of being out on the trail enjoying it. So I'm going to take it to the shop. I'm going to trust these guys to do some great work. We're going to hang out there and watch them install it, and then more importantly, we're going to get out and have some fun and start using this old truck. Finally. All right, I got to get the rest of these leaf springs up in here. They're heavy. I love the body style of this old Cherokee, but it does have a little bit more station wagon stance than the tough Jeep off-roader attitude I'm looking for. So after packing up all the lift kit parts, I headed over to my local shop, Shift Auto Works. These guys have always taken great care of my cars, and I am confident that they're going to give this the attention it needs, and most importantly, they have something I don't: a lift. One of these days, I will have a lift in my garage. One of these days. Now, I've spent more time than I can account for on my back on a creeper in my garage looking under this Cherokee. But this is the first time I've had it on a lift and was able to get a really good close look at things. It's got some surface rust, but no major cancer on the frame. The pans look good. There's a few things I noticed, though, that I hadn't before, like this baling wire, the old exhaust hanger, and this random broken spring. You never know what you'll find on a 49-year-old car. My son Devin came with me this morning and was eager to lend a helping hand and learn a bit about this process. Now, my good buddy Jerry is the mechanic that's taking the lead on this installation. He got to work quickly removing the shocks, which are about 1.5 years old, but only have about 500 miles on them, so they will be finding their way to a new home. This lift kit comes with new extended brake lines, so the old one in the rear was first to go. It's important to be careful when removing old lines like this. You don't want to strip the threads or break the line. It's not like we can run down to the auto parts store and find an off-the-shelf replacement for a 74 Cherokee. But thankfully, it came apart without much complaint. But look at the color of that fluid. It's not supposed to be that dark. This whole brake system gave us more than we bargained for by the end of the day, but more on that later. Now time to say goodbye to these old leaf springs. These springs were flat when I bought the Jeep 1.5 years ago, and I had a local shop rebend them back to the stock height, and they ride very comfortably down the road. They just don't allow for any room for larger tires, which will be another very soon addition. And because both the front and rear springs have been worked on recently, the bolts were not much fuss to remove. Well, nothing that a pry bar, a good hammer, and some motivation couldn't resolve anyway. And once again, I'm thinking how thankful I am to not be laying on my back fighting with these old leaf springs. This really has me thinking hard now how I can get a vehicle lift installed in my garage. Jerry cleaned up some of the old leaf spring mounting locations and added just a little bit of grease to make installing the new springs much easier. He did note my shackle bushings are overdue to be replaced, a little dried out, but that will have to wait for another day. The new springs are thicker and have a little more of a vertical bend to them, which is how you achieve the 4-inch lift. But after getting both springs kind of mounted up and positioned, neither of them were lining up to the mounting points. And Jerry had to do something he's never done in his shop before. Jerry, I know you guys have been working hard getting these rear leaf springs on. You've run into a little hiccup. What's going on?
So the shackle won't reach the post where it's supposed to be mounted. So we referred to the instructions, which I usually never do. And what the instructions told us was that you're supposed to put a 4x4 piece of wood on top of the spring to stretch it so that the shackle is able to reach. And that's what we're doing right now.
Is it safe to say you don't normally do a lot of woodworking in here?
This is definitely not OSHA approved. So we'll see how it works.
All right.
It moved it.
It moved it. It sure did move it.
Woo!
That worked pretty good, huh?
Working, yeah. That's crazy. I never thought it would work. Yeah, I actually never did.
I'm sure there's a bunch of old timers out there that already knew this trick to get a leaf spring to fit. But now we know, and we're thankful it worked.
Now we're gonna get the
I just can't imagine how frustrated I would probably be right now on my garage floor with the Jeep on jack stands, trying to use a floor jack to compress the spring to maneuver this block of wood and the shackle in place all at the same time. Oh, yeah, I'm thankful I came here. What a great decision. The rear springs still took a little extra persuasion to get fully seated, but it wasn't long until they were in place and bolted back up using the new U-bolts, and Devin took a little bit of time and freshened up the shackle plates just to make them match nice and clean with the leaf springs. The new shocks that we're installing are Bilstein 5125s, and they are similar to the ones that I had before, and they worked really well on the street. Just these new ones have a little longer shaft. Hopefully they'll perform well paired with these new leaf springs. Here is the new brake line next to the old one, and man, I'm thankful I ordered these new ones. Not only do I need the added length, but this old one is pretty rotted out. The new ones went on without any complaints. Now to get started on the front. The shocks came right out, but for whatever reason, the nuts on the U-bolts up front were being a bit of a challenge. So, what's an easy solution in this situation? Well, Jerry broke out the Sawzall, of course. Made quick work of getting everything disassembled. With the old front leaf springs off, here's what they look like side by side to the new ones. The new springs have a sharper angled bend and appear to be a little bit shorter in length, which made us think these might also give us a little trouble getting them mounted. Our hunch was right. These were going to be tough to mount up, and after some pretty good finagling, reading the instructions, some lengthy discussions, and even trying the block of wood trick, the leaf springs were bolted into place, but the front shackles were not sitting in the correct position. For a while, we thought maybe we actually have the wrong part number leaf springs, because nothing the guys did was getting the shackles in the front to fall down into place. The tire was sitting too far back, the drag link was hitting the leaf spring, everything just seemed out of whack. So we finally made a phone call and got the good folks at Deaver on the phone, and they were extremely helpful. A huge shout out to those guys for talking us through this. They said this lift kit springs required a little extra persuasion to get them to sit right with the front shackles. So after some serious heaving and 2 large pry bars and 2 more able bodies, the front shackles dropped forward into position. We are having to pull out all the tricks on this install. Next up is to install the drop pitman arm. Now, a pitman arm attaches to your steering box and connects to your drag link, and it controls your steering. So having one that drops down a few inches will ensure the steering geometry stays close to stock. Thankfully, out of all the stuff we did, this was a quick swap because these guys have the right tools. With the main components of the lift kit now installed, next it was time to install the new extended front brake lines. The old ones came off surprisingly without much hassle, and the new ones went on with no issues at all. But once the guys started to bleed the brake system, well, we ran into a slight problem. No, scratch that. This is actually a pretty big problem.
Jerry, what's the matter with my brake fluid, buddy?
Come over, take a look.
What do you got?
Come over, take a look.
Oh no, that's bad.
This is...
That's rough. Okay.
That's bad.
That's bad.
It's truly a wonder I had any brakes at all driving this thing around. I imagine the brake fluid that's in the master cylinder is decades old, and the system is so clogged up that the guys couldn't even bleed the rear brakes. Kind of scary. All right, guys, it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. These guys have been working all day really hard, and we've overcome some pretty good challenges. But the one challenge was the brake cylinder, having all that crud in there. After bleeding the brakes, the right rear passenger brake, we just weren't getting any fluid through. So thankfully, at home, I already had a new master cylinder and brake booster. So I just ran home, picked those up, and we're just gonna go ahead and swap those out now while we're doing it. So the brakes are gonna be good to go when this is all said and done.
Hey Jerry, how many times do you pump those brakes?
1,000.
Your legs okay?
My legs are on fire.
Jerry, you just got back from the test drive. How'd it go? Because it took you a little while.
Your battery is completely dead.
Okay.
So it shut off on me 3 times.
Okay.
On a good note, your brakes are amazing.
Okay.
You're absolutely gonna love them. They are very sensitive, and very, very like touchy. So
Awesome.
they are awesome. It's a little bit bouncy.
Okay.
Like the leaf springs are, I can tell that they are a little bit hard.
Okay.
So any sort of bumpy road, you're
Yeah.
gonna feel it. You're
Okay.
gonna be jumping around all day.
All right. Hopefully they'll soften up a little.
I hope that they soften up because it is a little bouncy, especially in the front. You
Okay.
can see that hood bouncing up and down if the road is a little bumpy.
Okay.
Also, the steering wheel's a little off, but we can correct that really quick.
Right.
And other than that, yeah, we just gotta charge your battery because it left me stranded 3 times.
Right on, dude. Well, it's been a long night, man. Thanks for your help.
No problem.
Well, guys, it is 2 days later, and originally I thought right now we would be out on the trail getting this thing dirty. And well, the state of affairs have changed. But before we take a deep dive into what's going on, let me show you how this old girl looks out in the daylight. The stance is perfect. Oh yeah, she looks like a proper Jeep now. I'm really happy with that. And I did some before and after measurements, and we got quite a bit of clearance both in the front and the rear and the center. So that's gonna be really nice when we're out there getting after it. Plus, I do have some new rubber coming, so it's gonna even be just a little bit taller when it's all said and done. Now, why are we not on the trail? Well, first let's talk about the drive home and then driving it yesterday. There is some driveline vibration. And so when you lift a vehicle, you're now extending the angle and the length of the drive shaft. And so I kind of expected that we might have a complication. So when you are decelerating, when you let your foot off the accelerator, there's a notable vibration coming from the driveline. And then over 60 miles an hour, it starts to shake a little bit. So I'm not confident enough to take this thing out on a trip on the trail just yet. We need to get that sorted. So I've got an appointment next week to go talk to a driveline specialist, and we're going to get that all squared away. Hopefully, we'll be out on the trail soon after that. But there's a couple other things that we need to address. And first, I want to just say thanks, a big thanks to Shift Auto Works. Those guys went above and beyond, and not just taking care of the lift kit, but the brakes. The brakes are really, really good right now, guys. I'm still gonna rebuild the rear drums, but man, I can tell night and day difference on stopping power. So those guys really helped me out. The drive on this thing is a little firm. It's notably firmer than when it was before. That's to be expected with new leaf springs, so I'll give it some time and see if it breaks in and settles down. If not, we might have to figure out some different shock options and just see how that goes. I expected it was going to be a little stiffer. It's definitely a little stiffer. Now, the other thing that's going on, when Jerry took it out for that test drive, it died on him 3 times. And I mentioned that I had some electrical ghosts, some gremlins that have been working their magic on Project Prickly Pear. And well, I was suspecting that there might be an issue with the alternator. And so when you drive it and the alternator is functioning properly, the vehicle shouldn't just die on you. And if you can drive with a dead battery as long as that alternator is doing its job. The minute you shut it off, you're not going to be able to restart it. But if the alternator is working properly, kicking out 14.1 volts, it should be okay. Well, I sat here with the multimeter and measuring it several times over the last 2 days, and it fluctuates all over the place. Sometimes it's not charging at all, sometimes it's like 14.8, and so I'm going to go ahead and swap the alternator. And my plan was to do this big project where we do the alternator and the starter and the solenoid. And you know what? I'm just going to do all of that right now. I basically have a whole week until we get to the driveline shop to get some new drive shafts. And I don't know if we're getting new ones or if we're going to rebuild and balance these ones. That'll all come. But in the meantime, I've got a lot of projects that I can just start knocking out, and so that's the plan. So I know, guys, in the beginning of this video, I mentioned that we were going to take this thing out on the trail and have a little fun. Well, that's life sometimes. When you make changes to a vehicle, it complicates some things. And so we're still going to do that. We're just not going to do it in this video. So stay tuned. Got a lot more projects coming, and we will have this thing out in the dirt. I promise it's going to happen. I can't wait. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me for this video. Please make sure you check us out over at TrailRecon.com, and make sure you check out those guys at Shift Auto Works here in Escondido, California if you need some work done. Thanks for watching.